Everybody, it's Mike, 55 years young. Take a look at my shirt. Well, I got a reminder to never use this shirt for this type of reaction video again. All right, this is another of my reaction videos to people's ex-vegan videos to this person's reaction video to ex-vegan videos. So let's just hear what she has to say. And I don't know who this person is. I've never seen her before, but apparently she's got, looks like a lot of followers. Okay, there we go. Let's get right into it.
That I went vegan, which was about 2015. The most popular vegan YouTubers were basically all thin, pretty, beachy kind of girls. And I
Go
won't lie,
guys.
they did inspire me to go vegan because, well, for one, I wanted to eat healthier because I
Huh.
was a junk food addict. But I definitely was, I guess, inspired by their like aura of positivity and yeah, their great bodies.
Okay, she said right away she was a junk food addict. Now, I'm kind of curious why she became a vegan other than looking at other people, because if it's for health, while you're giving up animal products, you have to have some pretty specific goals. It didn't sound like she had any at that time other than wanting to look better.
So this video covers a lot of stuff and I hope that it somewhat makes sense, but basically I'm talking about the YouTube vegan community, which doesn't just
Yeah,
include people who are now ex-vegans, but I think that there's been a serious problem with the spread of a lot of misinformation.
I
Over the
agree.
years, especially around when I went vegan, like 3 to 4 years ago, there have been so many really restrictive diets promoted by vegan YouTubers, such as fully raw, raw till 4, high carb, low fat, no oil.
Okay, restrictive, why? Just because they want to get noticed or because they have a specific goal in mind that they want to achieve? Because if you have a health goal, I wouldn't use the word restrictive, but I would use close to nature or selective, maybe, not restrictive.
I'm really still shocked that years ago, like around the time I went vegan, vegans on YouTube found it relatively normal to eat like 14 mangoes and 10 bananas and then binge on potato at night. Like, how did we think that that was okay? In addition to those specific diets, they also sometimes
Yeah, there were some
promoted.
people like that, and there still are. Even there's even mono meal people today. It's not necessarily specifically a vegan thing, but again, they have a goal in mind. This person is just, it's interesting because this video, I've never seen a video by this person before. She's reacting to the ex-vegans videos, and I don't know if she knows why she became vegan. Let's hear. Maybe it's just because she didn't want animals to be hurt. And she's focusing, though, on a lot of food and nutrition aspects.
Like water fasts or juice fasts, which are problematic, and we will get to that. Anyway, we've also seen a lot of like ridiculous claims made by vegan YouTubers, basically
Mm.
about how veganism can cure almost anything. We've seen
Yeah,
veganism for weight loss. Veganism will clear your
yeah.
skin. Veganism can cure.
Okay, let's get to that. I always use the example of the What the Health movie, and I'd say there was a big trend of veganism for a while, and then it fell out of favor, and that's why you see a lot of ex-vegans. And from my perspective, for the most part, they had health problems. And What the Health movie makes it sound like all you got to do is give up animal products, and you'll give up all your health problems. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's a very wonderfully motivating movie, but it's not accurate. It looks like a bait and switch to some people that develop health problems when they give up animal products. So I am agreeing with her on this, but she's not zeroing in on the exact reason as to why.
Diseases. Veganism can cure eating disorders. And there may be elements of those things that can be perhaps fixed in some ways through a vegan diet, a healthy, balanced vegan diet. But the vegan YouTubers who are promoting those things and making those big claims often made those claims without any scientific facts.
Okay, if she's saying that they just wanted to get an audience and get people to watch their stuff, I would agree. And that's true with anything. We're in the attention economy these days. So most people are just operating to get as to create a funnel and to get as many eyes on them as possible. And whenever you're really trying to do something well and do it right, and in this case, if you're talking about health, not be sick, you are going to be operating in an area where there aren't many people. That is not unique to veganism. I'd say that that's true with any aspect of life these days in 2025.
When you watch these Why I'm No Longer Vegan videos, a very common theme is that they got sick.
Yep,
They
I
got
agree.
digestive problems,
Hmm.
maybe they got acne,
migraine headaches, chronic sinus congestion, brain fog, memory loss.
All
any
kinds of
number of
issues.
symptoms that are
Yeah.
very uncomfortable and really hard
Hmm.
to deal with,
Real.
but clearly a symptom that something is wrong. And every
Hmm.
time a No Longer Vegan video comes out, the vegan YouTube community tends to make a lot of response videos. In these response videos, people often make suggestions or try to guess what went wrong, which on one
Okay, well, for the most part, I would agree with all that. And yes, there are response videos and people are trying to be helpful. But for the most part, most people who are vegan and stick with it do it because they don't want to harm animals. And the challenge is always going to be the same, which is how do you do this and not harm your health? So that's what those videos are for, most likely. And sometimes they get angry because, angry vegan is a thing. But, we've coined a new phrase that we call sustainable veganism. And this is on our website. Check it out at aPlantBasedDiet.org. And there's like a little terms tab there where you can see what our definitions are. This is one word that we coined, sustainable veganism. We only practice sustainable veganism. And I think that if everyone did, they wouldn't there wouldn't be all these ex-vegan videos. So sustainable veganism says that you do everything as far as practicable and possible to not harm your health while practicing veganism. So it's kind of like the Watson definition of veganism, but including your health, because if you're doing anything other than that, you probably will have a health problem. Just like you said, a myriad of reasons, a myriad of issues, a myriad of questions. People don't know what's going on, and then you'll quit. So we don't want people to quit. We want to do it in a sustainable fashion. And so that's our take on it.
one hand is not a wise thing to do because you don't know the specifics of a person's health journey and you're pretty much just guessing. But a common hypothesis in this kind of situation was basically that these people were not getting enough nutrients. They were in some way starving themselves or not eating a well-rounded enough diet. They
Agree.
weren't eating enough variety. And for most of them, they weren't supplementing, which is pretty essential for pretty much everyone, but
I'd say no. Supplementing is not essential unless you're talking about maybe B12.
especially vegetarians and vegans. A lot of response videos also
She said she was a junk food addict. So if she's a junk food vegan, and even people who say whole food plant-based, well, we don't know what that means. There's no universally accepted definition of the term whole food plant-based. So we use healthy vegan food, 6 pillars of healthy vegan food at healthyveganfood.info. That's where you find the definition. Of course, she's not going to mention this. Of course, she's not following it. Of course, she's not aware. She's probably not aware of the term sustainable veganism either. But that's why I'm now analyzing this video. If you know this person, just please feel free to pass this along to her.
suggest that things like eating such an insane amount of fruit with way too much fiber or doing really long-term water or juice
Yeah, I've heard this too. Eating too much fiber. 95% of humans alive right now don't get enough fiber every single day. And that includes vegans and plant-based people. I have never heard of getting too much fiber. In fact, one of the pillars of our 6-pillar healthy vegan food standard is that finished dish or item must have whole plant fiber. So you don't include things like juices that are very high glycemic index and things like that. And of course, all forms of vegan junk food.
juice fasts can also contribute to long-term issues.
Because of the extreme eating and dietary patterns, many ex-vegans inevitably cause the formation of their own digestive issues. When you fast for prolonged periods, you juice, you restrict calories, etc., then you are likely to decimate your gut flora or trigger gut issues such as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Now, when anybody is sick and unwell, I feel for them. I would never judge someone for wanting to make changes when they are literally suffering.
Should.
Being sick sucks. Being sick for a long period of time sucks. Not
I fully agree. That's why she's saying wouldn't judge. She's saying, well, I'm not going to hold that over them because that's why they became an ex-vegan, because they were sick. Of course not. But the question is why? Why were they sick as a vegan? It's because they followed something maybe called whole food plant-based. Everybody seems to be whole food plant-based, but nobody knows what that means. And the problem is that so many people get chronically ill, so many people who you think wouldn't. And it's simply because of what they're doing. She says, well, we don't want to be too restrictive. aka too many requirements, too much that you can't do, because she's a junk food addict, she says. Well, that's the whole problem. The reason why these people are getting sick is because they don't want to have to do that. And there are always repercussions for decisions like that, unfortunately, with most people.
Not knowing how you can make yourself better really sucks. I have definitely had points, such as when I started college, where I wasn't able to eat a well-rounded vegan diet, and I really, really suffered. I got sick mentally and physically.
Okay, so she knows. That's good. I'm glad she's admitting that.
But what worries me most about this entire situation and a lot of these ex-vegans type of content is just the spread of misinformation, especially nutritional information. And if someone came out with an anecdote saying,
I mean,
oh, this...
we talked earlier about how we're in an attention economy, and that's what people try to do, is get your attention no matter what. It's kind of like restaurants. The whole goal is to get you to come back. They'll put anything in the food as long as you come back. It's not good for your health in no way. Same with this. Health advice is not to be taken by anyone other than your own doctor, hopefully, who is board certified in lifestyle medicine and actually practices medicine too, by the way. So I would say, yeah, be super careful of who you're listening to and taking advice from, especially if they don't have a framework like we do with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food and a goal like we do, which is eradicating non-communicable disease in humans, and has coined the term like we have called sustainable veganism, which is the only way that we will practice veganism going forward, because if you don't, you end up chronically ill and then you quit.
Exact diet made me feel this way, it cured this problem, other people would follow. Another disturbing thing that some vegan YouTubers did were making claims that basically vegans don't have to worry about protein, because we all get the questions, how do you get protein? How do you get this nutrient? I think people so much wanted to dispel.
Okay. Truly, if you're eating a balanced diet of a wide variety of plants, you don't have to worry about protein. You don't need to take any protein powder. That's not even a whole plant food. It doesn't meet our 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, of course, 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. But all plants have protein. All plants have water. All plants have fiber. I could go on and on and on. You name it. All plants have fat. All plants have the right things in the right balance, but there are some essential nutrients that you cannot get or are very hard to get on a plant-based or vegan diet. Protein is not one of them.
Those doubts that they're like, actually, vegans don't have to worry about anything. Vegans will get all of the nutrients as long as you eat enough calories. But that's not true.
And what she's saying is what I pointed out earlier with the What the Health movie. Very motivational, gets a lot of eyes, a lot of attention. Unfortunately, it's like a bait and switch for somebody that gets sick, and it's not true, like she says.
True, it's not just about getting enough calories. You do have to make sure you get enough protein. You do have to very carefully make sure you get the right nutrients. There's also this segment of the vegan YouTube community that is obsessed with purity and like naturalness, who literally would tell their audience that there's no need to supplement. Oh, you can get everything you need through food, when that's not always the case. I think
it's not always the case. You put that in there. I'm glad she did. Maybe she had to do a retake, because it is possible to eat without animal products and never require supplements. It is possible. You just have to be very intentional. You have to plan a lot. You don't have to take supplements. Supplements, like a lot of things, are just a convenience item. And then whenever something's convenient, it usually has negative health consequences. So, yeah, I mean, growing your own food, cutting it, and eating it when it's fully ripe and right off the plant at full nutrition, that's not convenient. But you could do that. And you probably, as long as you had the right amount of plants, would live an amazing illness-free life. But of course, most people can't do that. There's some degree of moving away from that ideal, and then the problem is a lot of people end up getting sick, and that's kind of what she's getting at here. And I do agree with that. Got to watch out.
I think it is way better to be safe and supplement, maybe if you don't 100% need to, than to be sorry when you end up deficient and sick. For years.
How about we don't guess? How about you get a blood test? How about anything that you are lacking in, that where your numbers are low, that you go to the internet and AI, ChatGTP and Grok, and you find a list of the top 20 whole plant foods that are high in that thing that you're low in. Like if it's iodine, you'll find that potatoes are high in that. So you don't need to add added sodium to your food to get an iodine supplement, things like that.
Years. In the beginning of my vegan journey, I was not regularly supplementing. I have started taking daily supplements, B12, D3, a vegan omega-3, iodine, calcium, zinc, magnesium. I'm taking a lot of supplements. P.S. I am still trying to be more mindful about eating well and getting as many
Trying to be more mindful. She said in the beginning she's a junk food addict. I hope she's seeing a practicing medical doctor. I hope that doctor is board certified in lifestyle medicine. I hope she's getting tests. I hope her doctor and her are looking at whole foods, whole plant foods that are high in the things that she's low in.
nutrients as I can through food, but supplements are my friend because I really want to make sure that I am not causing long-term damage to my body, which can happen if you're deficient in.
But also, how do you know that that supplement pill actually has in it what it says it has? How do you know that taking an isolate supplement pill isn't going to cause other unintended consequences? Because it's totally out of balance in regards to being natural or out of nature. And how do you know there aren't things in that supplement, like the glue that holds that powder together, that don't cause health problems in them, just on their own?
And a lot of nutrients or specific nutrients for an extended period of time. Also, I get blood tests done so that I actually know exactly how I'm doing and I'm not just guessing things based on how I'm feeling. And by the way, I think this is important for everyone, not just vegans, vegetarians, people with special diets. I think everyone needs to be more aware of their body, get blood tests done, make sure you're on track. But anyway, the most dangerous part of this is that these creators, these ex-vegan YouTubers, were admittedly feeling sick and they were getting progressively worse over the course of months and years. Meanwhile, they were still sharing what they were eating. They were still selling ebooks with meal plans. They were still profiting off of and spreading.
Okay, there's a lot of that. There's also a lot of, and there has been a lot of people who don't even follow their own advice in terms of what they're eating. They say they're doing one thing, and then they're doing another.
The very diets and lifestyles that were making themselves ill. That is horrendous. I worry for the millions of viewers, especially the young women who tend to watch these kind of channels, who were following what they were eating, who were inspired by their lifestyles, what they looked like, what they seemed like. It's so dangerous. And another issue.
And I've seen people who say they went raw vegan because of people like the ones she showed earlier that gained 40 pounds, because they don't talk about the percentage of calories from fat that you should be having. And people think, oh, it's raw, so I'll just eat all the nuts, seeds, and avocados I want. And no, that doesn't work well. It doesn't work out.
I have is that these people, even though they are no longer vegan, a lot of them still have videos up and monetized that promote the diets that they used to have, and the juice cleanses and the water fasts. It is mind-boggling. So, continuing on, in these no longer vegan videos,
I've seen some people
almost
like that.
Every single person says that after being ill, they decided, after trying a lot of different things, that they would return to animal products, and most of them end up eating eggs and fish, at least to begin with. And of those people who eat eggs and fish, almost all of them say that they feel better immediately.
Yeah, and a lot of it's because even though there are severe negative health consequences to eating those animal products, meaning the cancer that causes, the protein that causes cancer in humans, according to Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the fact that there's no fiber in them, and they're very high as a percentage of calories from fat, they are loaded with certain nutrients that are more difficult to get in plants. So it doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that you could be lazier, you can get things more conveniently and less planning, and it only catches up with you after a while. And that's why they quit after a little while, when their body runs out of those nutrients that maybe it had built up stores of.
And I feel like you have to be a bit skeptical about that. Some people literally say, the first bite of egg, I felt amazing. And it's like, is that perhaps the placebo effect? Or more likely, is it that you were starving your body and you were deficient in nutrients and you were finally giving your body something that contained those?
Okay, she's a junk food addict, so she doesn't starve, I guess. But I don't think they were starving necessarily. I think that they were just not eating the right amounts of plant foods that were high in the nutrients that they were low in. and or they weren't seeing a physician, a practicing medical doctor, board certified in lifestyle medicine. They weren't getting blood tests. They weren't looking at it from that perspective. I think that's what was really going on with probably almost all of them, really.
Those nutrients. But I find it interesting because these people who once said that veganism was their magical cure-all are now saying that fish and eggs and other animal products are a cure-all, fixing all of their problems. I definitely believe that eating a more well-rounded.
Now remember, eating those animal products may fix certain deficiencies in nutrients, but it's going to cause other problems, like I said, like cancer, lack of fiber, too much fat, which creates type 2 diabetes, including if you're 100% vegan, by the way.
Diet, eating more calories, making sure you're getting the nutrients you need. I'm sure that that would make you feel better, but I still would be skeptical because this kind of makes it seem like fish and eggs are like some superfoods, and that's just not the case.
Well,
they're just foods that contain nutrients.
They kind of are. Superfood is anything that contains high levels of essential nutrients, and they kind of are. But like I said, too many negatives. When you run the cost-benefit analysis, it doesn't work out for animal products.
Unlike, say, water fasts or only eating fruit for years. So what would be a better way to address health struggles on a vegan diet? I think first of all, it would be helpful to yourself and your viewers if you are transparent about struggles when you're having them. I'm not saying to rely on your audience to give you medical advice, but sometimes people can give you tips that you may not be.
I would agree. That's why I did a blood test video recently where I went over my blood test. And I tell people what I eat. And by the way, I look like I look too. I don't use anything to cosmetically enhance me, either procedures, colors, whatnot, like I'm sure that she does. But I'm just saying there's different levels of transparency. And I wonder if she's done any videos going over her blood test. I'm curious.
Be aware of, or at least lead you on a direction where you can go get professional help. Also, I think it is incredibly important to get blood work done.
There you go.
And
Good.
if you're willing, you can try out specific vegan solutions and then get more blood work done. And you'll actually have concrete proof of what has been happening in your body, at least in terms of what can be shown on a blood test. Anecdotal evidence is probably what gets people into these kind of messes. So sharing more anecdotes is not helpful. And my point isn't that it's anyone's responsibility to conduct scientific experiments on themselves, but it would be refreshing to see people actually provide more information because it can help other people.
I agree. And the same I'm saying with her. I don't think that she has made any videos analyzing her own blood test results, because I would think that if she did, she would use this as an opportunity to point that out. So just saying.
Veganism didn't work for you, that's too bad, but people can learn from your mistakes. Also, I think it's very important to explicitly tell your audience not to make the mistakes you did. Denounce the diets that you did in the past that ended up being harmful. More importantly, also admit that you are not a valid, professional, reliable source of information on nutrition. And after leaving veganism, please do not continue to spread new diets and promote new fad things that you're trying out, because clearly you're just experimenting and that may be fine for yourself, but don't share that with people who are going to follow what you're doing.
I unfortunately think that this woman, this lady, this girl is experimenting as well. She's taking all these supplements and she's not sharing her blood test results. I wish that she was, because we would have a much better idea of what she's talking about right now. And we wouldn't have to have a surface level discussion. This is the perfect opportunity for her to bring all this up.
Some of the things that I have been dabbling in and have been things like plant medicine, Kangen water, red light therapy, meditation.
It's the blind leading the blind. So after all of this, it can be really confusing to know who or what to believe in regard to nutrition and health. But I would trust a nutritionist or a doctor much more than I would trust an influencer. So anyway, now I want to get in.
So don't take any medical advice from anyone on the internet, including me or her or anybody else. Find a practicing medical professional, a practicing medical doctor, and ideally, And really, most importantly in my mind, they are board certified in lifestyle medicine. That's what you want. Look around if you can't find one. There's plenty of sources online to identify people that are board certified in lifestyle medicine.
Into kind of the common responses or comments or questions that are posted on almost every one of these videos. A lot of people comment, these videos are bad for veganism. Some people even think that these creators, these ex-vegans, were paid by the animal agriculture industries to talk shit on veganism.
Maybe. But I also think it's not bad for veganism. It's actually good. It's kind of like non-communicable disease. Even though it's 90% of all healthcare costs in the United States right now, it's a warning that your body sends out to you. And if you just interpret it right and ask why, then you have the opportunity to bring yourself into a balanced state of health optimization. And what she's saying with these ex-vegan videos is that there's always an opportunity for anyone, whether it's someone who's vegan and reacting to them or the person who is no longer vegan, to say, hey, this is why I got sick. Because the question of why needs to be answered. Is why, and here's what I can do differently next time or now, and even someone who's vegan and looking at it doesn't have to look at it so horribly. They need to say, hey, this is real. They really were sick. We need to practice sustainable veganism.
And make it look bad. I don't think I have to point out how ridiculous that is. But anyway, I think it's clear that if someone was becoming very unhealthy on a specific, very restrictive kind of a vegan diet, that I would rather them not be vegan anymore and not be promoting that diet than to have them stay vegan, stay sick, and...
But again, she's unaware of our concept, our coined term called sustainable veganism. So if you know her, please send her that link to our website at aPlantBasedDiet.org where we define our terms.
And still keep selling these restrictive diets. Also, the blame is not on veganism. It's not that veganism in general failed them necessarily, but that these people and the diets that they chose were too restrictive and they were not nutritionally sufficient. So their version of veganism did not work with their body.
Okay, I guess she's had an eating disorder, is a guess, because she keeps using that word too restrictive. If you want to use that term, and I'll use it right here as an example, what you need to do and what she probably needs to do is be too restrictive on the health-harming vegan foods. Because everyone likes to indulge in the super tasty vegan junk food, and they call it whole food plant-based, but ultimately it harms your health because you're not being restrictive enough. Now, I don't use the term restrictive. I would say more in balance, more closely aligned with nature. When you do that, then you find that you will not get chronically ill. So that's the most important takeaway here.
Body. Then there are a lot of comments or video responses that say basically these ex-vegans were fake vegans. They were never vegan. If they could go from vegan to not vegan, then they were never vegan.
I hear that a lot because our nonprofit is called aPlantBasedDiet.org. People say plant-based isn't vegan. Vegan's not a diet, and they're right. But the problem is veganism's also not sustainable unless you practice sustainable veganism.
In the first place, which just doesn't make sense to me. I don't agree with this. I think if someone is fully vegan in their diet and their lifestyle for years and then decides not to be vegan anymore, that doesn't take away the years that they were vegan. I understand that behind veganism is a lot of passion about animals and the environment and personal health, but really the animals are the main issue. So the people who tend to say that are vegan for the animals. And for them, veganism is for life, because once you make the switch and decide not to support animals.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say I would kind of refer to those people as ethical only vegans, ethical only. And the problem with ethical only is that it's not a sustainable form of veganism. If you're only focused on the ethics and nothing else, eventually most people will crash out with a health problem.
Animal agriculture anymore, how could you ever go back? That's where I think we come into the issue of vegan versus plant-based, because if you're gonna say that these people, ex-vegans, were never vegan in the first place, then I guess we would call them plant-based. They had a plant-based diet. I've never been too concerned with labels, but I'll be honest, I went vegan. My primary reason was for the environment. I learned about the detriments of animal agriculture environmentally, and that was my first motivator. Of course, the benefits of not harming animals in my diet are great. That's another really
Yeah.
great benefit. And
Yeah.
I think that being vegan has connected me a lot more to animals. But again, I'm sorry, but the animals are not my personal number one reason. So maybe some people would say, all right, then you're not vegan. All right, then I am plant-based.
Okay. There's no ranking of your number one, number two, number three reasons to be vegan that's meaningful to excommunicate you as a vegan, as she's saying. As long as you realize that veganism really is just that you don't want to harm animals if you don't have to, as far as practicable and possible, that's the Watson definition, then that's it, you're vegan. The problem is it's not sustainable from a health perspective, as we've talked about.
In my diet and in my lifestyle, I aim to reduce harm as much as possible to animals.
Yeah.
But still, it's like, this is where this like elitist kind of issue comes in, where if you're not perfect, then you don't deserve our title of vegan.
Well, there is no perfect. There's no perfect. You don't have to worry about being perfect. There's no perfect in health either. Everything's a balance. It's constantly shifting and changing, and you just have to rebalance, do the best you can, learn more. That's the same thing with veganism. That's why the Watson definition says as far as practicable and possible. It's like when you know better, you do better. But if you don't know yet, then you can't do better.
To stay out of the community because it's pure. And that's the thing that a lot of people have issues with in terms of the vegan community, specifically on YouTube, because again, this does not all apply to vegans in general, because I think that vegans on YouTube can be the most passionate and enthusiastic and sometimes crazy and angry. And there are a lot of vegans in regular life who are just vegan. By the way, I also wanted to touch.
There are, but it's also the other way around. There's plenty of people in regular life that are way more passionate, way more outspoken. We've been to, protests and things like that, and there's value in those. But those exist too. So maybe she doesn't ever go to those and hasn't, so she doesn't know.
Touch on the weird trend of ex-vegans turning to carnivores. That
Yeah.
is the weirdest shit that I have ever heard of. But clearly that shows that I think those type of people just love extremes. Like maybe they have a personality type that.
I don't think so. I think that what she's missing here is that they were deficient in certain nutrients, whether they had blood tests or not, whether they tested for those specific nutrients or not, because the lipid panel may or may not have certain things like K2 or choline that they're not going to know. And those are readily available in many animal products that are very, very hard to come by in plants. You need to do planning. You need to be very intentional. And most people aren't about that. Most people are about the tasty foods, the junk foods, super convenient. I don't want to have to be bothered with that. That's how most people live their lives. And so you can understand. And that's why we came up with the sustainable veganism concept, to coin that term.
Just, they love joining something and doing it wholeheartedly, but then they will switch on to the next thing, even if it's completely in contrast to the last thing that they were doing. I just don't understand. If you're gonna say that a vegan diet wasn't healthy or didn't work for you, okay, I understand that. Go back to like a standard balance.
Well, remember, that is why most people become ex-vegan. Exactly what she just said. And even she is struggling, if you ask me, with her health. If she's got this laundry list, or grocery list of supplements that she's taking every day.
Balanced diet, including animal products. But to go full carnivore and only eat like organ meats? Okay. Interesting choice. My last question is veganism sustainable? Like on a personal level, is it possible to be a vegan for your entire life? And I think for most people, it would be a challenge. I think if you don't have any specific dietary needs or health conditions, it could be possible for you to be vegan.
Wait a minute. If you don't have any specific dietary needs or health conditions? I mean, we all have specific dietary needs because we have to eat the diet that our body is most benefited by, not harmed by, right? And then a condition, like if you have a food addiction problem, which most people do, well, you better get help because that's going to be their veganism or not veganism. And if you have an eating disorder, you need to get help as well because those issues, and she didn't really bring up eating disorders, not really in this video, those are going to manifest regardless of the type of food that you eat.
but it does require an insane amount of time and research and energy. And sometimes after years and years and years
First of all,
of being
I don't think it requires an insane amount of time, research, and energy. We have AI, ChatGPT, Grok, easy to do all this stuff. So easy. Never been easier. The thing is, actually, even finding the foods that you want to eat that are most beneficial to your health, easier than ever at the stores. It's just that you have to go through that planning process, the intentionality of knowing what you're going to eat. You can't just pull up to the drive-through. I don't know any drive-through, whether it's vegan or plant-based restaurant fully, that serves anything but health-harming food.
vegan and putting in all of that effort, some people just get tired out, and it makes sense that people eventually start cheating on their vegan diet or start slacking off or decide that one.
Okay, cheating's okay. A cheat meal every week, twice a week, maybe out of all those 3 times 7, 21 meals that you had during the week, maybe. That's it, okay? Got to be 95% compliant. Your body's not going to know the difference. That's okay. But anything outside of that is a bad habit, not a cheat meal, not cheating.
100% veganism is not for them. It doesn't work with them anymore. And I definitely don't blame people, because I personally was a pretty aggressive vegan, I would say, in my first year or so of being vegan. But I have mellowed out since, and I think that my perspective now is that I want people to do the best that they possibly can.
Definitely.
If people like the thought of eating less animal products,
Veganism is no different than anything else. You have to do the best you can. You have to approach it with an open mind. No different than anything else. You have to learn. You have to keep going on your journey. Those lessons that you need to learn, aka problems, will keep repeating over and over again, but not until you're ready for them. And that's when you have to either quit or say, I'm not dealing with this anymore, or I want something way more convenient. I don't want to think anymore. But if you don't think, you're going to be chronically ill, regardless of what you're eating. That's the problem.
and reducing their consumption of animal products, then that's good. That is a good thing. People reducing their meat or dairy intake is a good thing. That helps the animals that much more. That helps the environment. That could be a lot more healthy for them. I've just personally strayed away from that super strict, you have to be 100% vegan or you're nothing, because not a lot of people can handle that.
Yeah, people who go to our events, we're just trying to show them that you can do the best you can for your health, the best, by eating like the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. We know that not everybody complies, of course, but you do the best you can. And it's okay if you're going back to animal products if you can't yet get away from them, but make the effort. Keep moving forward. It's especially critical if someone already is chronically ill. If they're not yet chronically ill, maybe they have a little bit of time. But once that non-communicable disease sets in, and that's anything you can't catch from someone else, backing out for super rare genetic issues. Like I said, it's 90% of medical costs in the US. Once that happens, you have to adhere to that 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. She doesn't even know about it, but that's what we need to do to make veganism sustainable. Otherwise, everybody's going to quit.
A lot of people want to do that, but I think that collectively, if the whole world could make smaller changes or cut their consumption of animal products in half, that would overall be a lot more effective and impactful. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, well, let's stop our analysis there, since she's obviously done. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you know this person, maybe share this video, my commentary with her, because I would love to talk to her more, maybe even do a direct interview, because she seems like a great person. I think that she's just not, maybe, just like she said that a lot of people don't know, and you do the best you can, she doesn't know about the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, why those 6 pillars exist, why we have to eat like that to ensure we're not harming ourselves, why we had to develop the term sustainable veganism and what that means and what it entails. And, the more of us are brought together in this space, and the more examples that we can show, like me, 55 years young, right? No, I don't have any non-communicable disease. The goal is to never have any. Just have fun, enjoy your life. Don't have to worry about filling prescriptions, getting procedures, going to doctor's appointments that are not your annual checkup to ask your doctor how he's doing, right? I mean, that's all you need to do, super basic things, and enjoy your life. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, and Please subscribe if you don't already. And of course, share this if you've gotten this far with somebody that can benefit, which is basically everybody. So share it with somebody. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.